Welcome back to CBH4K, and if you're like me, then you have a hankering for some tactical games. Especially if you're a fan of the XCOM franchise, these games that I'm about to list might just scratch that itch for you. Are these exact copies of XCOM? Of course not. They are their own games with their own game mechanics and story. However, they do have a few things in common, such as they all feature tactical combat of some kind, and the development of an individual soldier or character with RPG-like mechanics. Now, in no particular order, here are 7 games to play if you loved Firaxis' XCOM. They often say that the original is the best. Well, with that in mind, let's take a look at the original XCOM game. XCOM UFO Defense. It was also known as XCOM Enemy Unknown in Europe. In addition, we are also looking at the popular modded version openxcom as well. XCOM UFO Defense was published by Mythos Games and developed by Microprose. I have played a lot of tactical video games, and without a doubt, OG XCOM is one of the roughest, toughest, meanest games out there. The original XCOM story followed similar beats as the newer ones, a massive alien invasion that the human race is losing quite badly, so in one final attempt to push back, all the countries in the world pool their money and their other resources into the XCOM project. As the new commander of the XCOM project, it is the player's job to lead the project in either success or failure. In order to help you with this, the government will provide you with their ongoing support, notably a monthly payment. Gameplay has 2 modes. The first one is where your entire strategic planning takes place on a massive globe called the Geoscape. In the Geoscape, the player is put in charge of decisions that range from monumental down to the most minute details. You do things like buy planes to shoot down UFOs, provide equipment, weapons, and ammo to your soldiers. The Battlescape is where the turn-based battles take place. And the game has a system called turn units, or TUs if you prefer. The TU system is considered far more flexible than the new XCOM game's 2-action system, as each soldier has a set amount of TUs. Once they run out, their turn is considered over, or they can be saved by simply not using all of them. Once you hit the end turn button, it sets your units into reaction fire mode, in which the soldiers will keep shooting at moving enemy targets until they run out of ammo, enemies, or TUs. That's if they shoot at all. Sometimes they don't. OpenXCom adds a lot of things to the base game, and it modernizes it a bit as well. It lets you save the previous soldier loadout in the deployment screen. All of your male soldiers do not have to look like Guile from Street Fighter, and much, much more. I encourage you to check out the description for the OpenXCom mod, but please note, as with all mods, you need the base game. last spell came out earlier this year, and so far I believe it's going to be my game of the year. However, as the year goes on, it seems to be facing stiffer competition, but more on that later. The last spell was published by the Arcade Crew, Gamma Games, and Danger Entertainment, and developed by Ishtar Games. The last spell puts you in the role of a mysterious commander who has to protect the last few safe havens in the world that was nearly destroyed by a magical zombie apocalypse. You need the last remaining wizards and mages to cast the last spell, which will get rid of all the magic, making everyone mundane. The game has two main phases. The first is the production phase, where you build your defenses and buy equipment for your heroes. Also you level them up. The combat phase happens in turn-based tactical battles with hordes of enemies coming at your walls. By the way, the combat phase happens at night, so the game switches the in-game lighting from day to night, creating a sense of dread. If you can survive the night, it switches back to day, giving you a sense of tense calm, as you will still have to be ready for the next night. Combat is turn-based, with the hero's special skills tied to the weapon they have been equipped with. Heroes also get their own internal perk trees that are randomly generated. The enemies are varied and difficult. If you get surrounded by too many different types, it will be brutal. At the end of each map, you will have to face a boss. The game has a ton of replayability. It encourages this with a meta progression for all your campaigns, which had a ton of unlocks, so even if you do terribly, all you have to do is wait for the next game. This game is for people who want a bit of tower defense and some roguelike elements as well. It will take quite some time before this game gets old, so it will definitely keep you entertained. The Iron Oath was published by Rumble Games and developed by Curious Panda Games. This is a game in early access, so it's not quite finished yet, but what Iron Oath has to offer already is pretty great. It's a very deep game with tons of replayability. The story of this game is what the player makes of it, but it does have a very basic start. The Scourge is a giant dragon that creates monsters known as the Blighted to roam the land, and you are there as a mercenary to deal with them. Or should I say, playing as a fantasy adventure mercenary company, the player will see various members who can grow old, die, and retire. Also, they will become the heroes of the company, as you'll tell stories of that one guy that saved the entire company with just a lucky hit on a powerful enemy. You start the game by making a mercenary company and giving it a name, a flag, and various other bits and bobs. Then the game's procedural generation system gets to work, making a unique world for the player to roam around in. The game's tutorial is skippable, but past that, your fate is up to you. If you just want to travel across the map, then do that. If you want to stay in one area, then do that as well. If you only want to take certain types of contracts, then you can do that. Well, the game world is your oyster. Just remember, your mercenaries need to be paid and your equipment needs to be bought so you can fight battles. Combat in this game is turn-based, with positioning and movement having great importance to success. Knocking enemies into traps or pitfalls can cause extra damage. Battles sometimes have an over-the-top feeling to them and is very challenging. The game's overworld gameplay is very deep as well. Armor, weapons, and equipment can be purchased and repaired in towns. Dungeon crawling is like Mechanicus, where you move from spot to spot, making decisions when prompted by the game. You are given tons of lore and customization in the overworld map too. All of this is merely just a fraction of what you can do in this game. I say if you're a fan of mercenary management sim games like Battle Brothers or War Tales, then you should give this a try.
Oh, a devastating hit! And he sets himself into
Let's have some crazy fun in the form of a game that's part Running Man, part XCOM. The odd personality of the game makes it hard to describe fully. Showgunners is published by Good Shepherd Entertainment and developed by Artificer. The game uses a real-time exploration with turn-based tactics and a number of RPG mechanics. The story for this game is about a bounty hunter named Scarlet hunting a killer for revenge. The backdrop is a Running Man style type game show. While the story may be simple, it's still done modestly well. This game has an interesting cast of characters. The announcer really stands out because he gives great, colorful color commentary.
Feeling the pain! A pause while he reloads. And there's the coup de grace!
The gameplay is real-time exploration. In this mode, you dodge traps and other obstacles as you move to the next combat encounter. The player is given a chance to search for hidden loot boxes, and if they find them, there's a good chance they will get a special rare item. Fans of the game show will try and get autographs from Scarlet, and her reactions will change what type of sponsorship she will be given as her fame increases. The combat is turn-based and it has good, crunchy sound effects. Each character has a set of particular skills and weapons that can make combat a breeze. If you use them correctly, make combat a breeze if you use them correctly. If not, well, even if you plan everything well, you will still need to keep an eye out for the show director, as he will send obstacles or problems at Scarlet and the gang. The show director has everything from exploding barrels to smoke that obscures your sight. The game's presentation and tactical gameplay is on point in this game. At every turn, I really have to carefully plan my move, or I will pay for it in the next turn because the AI doesn't pull any punches. The fame system is a great way to incentivize the player to explore, as well as the items you get from the loot boxes help boost you in combat, which is always a plus. I know because I spent a great amount of time searching for them and going well out of my way to get them.
A direct hit. Oh, these trains don't slow down for anything.
Before we continue on with the rest of the video, I'd like to first say thank you for stopping by. And if you want to support this channel, then by all means hit the subscribe button. It's a great way to help this channel grow. And we're trying to get to 300 by the end of summer. So let's see if we can get those numbers up. Alright, thanks. Into the Breach uses positioning in its gameplay and technically is more of a puzzle game, but it's turn-based with permadeath. Brought to you by the creators of the indie smash hit FTL. Subset games both published and developed Into the Breach. Since the introductions out of the way, we can now head into the breach. The story for this game is something akin to the storyline of Pacific Rim, where giant monsters are attacking human civilization. So to fight back, humanity built giant mechs with over-the-top sci-fi weaponry. A fairly simple story, but with an added twist of time travel. But more on that later. Combat in this game is about positioning and moving your enemy around and protecting the power grid, which is the life bar of the player's campaign. Each time a building is damaged, the power grid loses one bar. You gain power from certain events, or at the end of the island, you can buy some power for your grid. The game's currency is stars, called renown. Renown is gained from completing special tasks during fights, like protect a train or beat a certain type of monster or something of that. You are also given a bonus to your renown based on how much power you have left at the end of an island. The game is quite challenging and you will probably lose your first few campaigns. Once your power drops to 0, then it's game over. Your pilots have a time travel device in their mechs and can travel back to the start with hopes of doing better. This brings us to the game's meta progression system. As the better you do, the more you can unlock different types of mech teams that can be used in future campaigns. You will also get new pilots to unlock. However, you can only have one pilot to carry over from campaign to campaign. This game was a great deal of fun. I was thrilled with some of the movement and combat of the game. The islands are challenging and fun with a twist to each fight because the game resets everything with the time travel mechanic. Yet, you are never made to feel that a campaign was a waste of your time, as it brings, unlocks, and more experienced pilots with it due to its completion one way or another. While the game is great, it had a hard act to follow with FTL, as it was considered a legendary indie game. But even though that's true, it still was a good time. In space, no one can hear you scream. Aliens Dark Descent is published by Focused Entertainment and developed by Tindalos Interactive. Wow, I have to say that this game is another contender for my game of the year. I've been a big fan of the Aliens franchise for years. The game is great at establishing the lore of the franchise so that even if you're new, you will be all caught up with the rest of us. The game takes place in the future where the human race has not only mastered space travel, but are now colonizing worlds. The company that gives these colonies and Earth the money, tech, and other resources to do this is called Weyland-Yutani. On one of the company's space stations, in orbit of a colony called Leafy, where a discovery of alien life is made, and surprise, they're hostile. I will not get into much detail, just that this is a horror game as well as a real-time tactics game, and it succeeds at both. That being said, the beginning is a bit cheesy, and dialogue is a bit forced at times, but once it gets going and starts telling the story through gameplay, it will really have you on the edge of your seat. First, let's talk about base building on Leafy. After the Ortego crashes lands on Leafy, the Marines must rebuild a base of operation using the ship. You are given plenty of time to upgrade your base and Marines on this screen. Also, you have complete control over the time, as you can change the day at any time with just a push of a button. Every day you have at least one deployment you can carry out. Lots of things take time in this game, so you will have to wait for your best troops back from the med bay if a mission goes particularly pear-shaped. Now, the mission gameplay is fast and furious, with each mission an intense fight for survival that will really put the player on their toes. You do have a pause or slow down feature depending on the game's difficulty setting in the combat that allows you to issue special orders or just slow things down so you can better react to the situation that you are presented with. Xenomorphs, the aliens in this franchise, are particularly nasty, have even worse surprises. So to deal with them, the game gives the player some nice tools like stealth and rest. Stealth is where you can have a detection mechanic that allows you to hide and wait for enemies to leave. Another is the resting mechanic, which allows you to rest your soldiers in a sealed room, and it restores the stress. Now, sealing doors also enables you to keep xenomorphs back so you can drop an ambush on them if you need. The game gives you lots of tools, which is helpful because you have a lot going against you. For example, the stress mechanic. This is where the more you fight, the more stress your soldiers will incur. Once it hits 100%, the Marines will suffer negative penalties. Also, if you are engaged with one xenomorph, others will hear the commotion and join in. Then all xenomorphs will go into hunt mode. meaning that the hive knows you are there and are now looking for you. The longer it goes on, the worse the level will get for the player's Marines. These things and so much more are what make this game so intense, scary, and of course, fun. If you want to see more of this, then watch my playthrough on this channel. People have said that this game is to Aliens as what Alien Isolation is to Alien. Although it may sound like an endorsement, I'm happy to say that I agree with that statement.
That is not trimonite.
Never seen ghouls this far south before. They're getting closer to the Ark every day. Something's up, Borman.
If you like a little stealth mixed in with your turn-based fun, then Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is for you. Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden was published by Funcom and developed by the Bearded Ladies. This game is much like Showgunners. It is a mix of real-time exploration and turn-based combat. However, this time, a little bit of stealth is added in. Both sides of the coin play relatively well off of each other, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the story. Since humanity has all been wiped out due to a brutal apocalypse involving global warming, viruses, zombies, and a mixed bag of destruction, it is so bad that the only way to live in the devastated wasteland is as some type of mutant. The game starts the player out as a couple of mutants named Ducks and Borman. They are called stalkers and they bring things from the wasteland for the people of the Ark. But the two are called on to find Hammond, a tinkerer and engineer whose job it is to make the Ark run. At first, the game has you in real time running around and seeking materials for various upgrades, new weapons, new armor, and other equipment through exploration. Exploration is the only way to acquire powerful gear, whether it is the item itself or the currency needed for it, such as scrap. In this game, you can switch to stealth mode by switching off your light, and using good movement can either move you away or set up a nice ambush. Once you start an ambush, you can shift into turn-based combat. If you take out an enemy unit with a silenced weapon, and before they can ring the alarm, the rest of the enemies on the map will not know where you are, and even if you are really there. If you don't do this, then combat can be a struggle. If you want to avoid a powerful enemy, which you can and should do, as you can always come back with higher levels and better gear. The game has a decent amount of enemy variety, as some of abilities that will just ruin your day. I found this game to be a very fun-filled and satisfying experience. Not only were the characters well written, but the game's story and side stories were also well done. Combat and exploration fed well off of each other. The game blended many different genres to create something unique. I say for most RPG and turn-based fans, give it a try. You just might be surprised. If you like this type of video, then check out my other videos on XCOM-like games, such as even more XCOM-like games. A link to it is right here on the end screen. Go ahead and click on it right now.